G'day guys, Clint here, recording episode number 58 of The Full Landscape. Today's guest is Mr. Peter Wadewitz from Peats Soils. Pete and I have known each other for probably nearly 10 years now. We have a customer and supplier relationship where one of my businesses buys from him, but we don't deal with each other that much. We spend more time probably talking about business and the likes, considering that we were both involved in the Master Landscapers Association for a while on the board, but now just in general. Now, today's podcast, Pete focuses heavily on talking about improving the quality of your soils using organics. It's something that he's quite passionate about, and obviously he's been doing this for nearly 50 years, so I would definitely consider him an expert in his field. We do talk about a bunch of other things as well, including his plans for succession for the Peats business, and obviously some of the business that they're doing interstate and internationally. If you need to get in touch with Pete about anything, you're probably best off just DMing me or Waterpro through the channel, or sending an email. If you want to find out more about their business, go to their website. We'll link that up in the comments. If you've got any questions for me, you can hit me up as well. But other than that, please sit back, relax, and enjoy. Thank you for coming in. I know you're a very busy man.
All good.
Took us a little while to kind of find a mutually beneficial time. So for our listeners out there, if you could just give us a brief introduction, name, rank, serial number, business. You've got a few companies from what I can see on the internet.
Yep. So Peter Wadewitz, been involved in the landscaping, come nursery, come compost organic materials for some 50 odd years. Family business, 3 generations. Now I've got a grandson that's come into the business, so hopefully it's going to continue on for 4 generations. So we recycle about 200,000 tonne thereabouts. It goes up and down a bit, but about 200,000 tonne of organic material. We've got depots in Langons Creek, Wollonga, Whyalla, Dublin, Darwin, and we've actually got an operation where we're part shareholder in a composting site in Qatar in the Middle East. We've just actually recycled about 1,200 tonne of food waste from the World Cup soccer. So that was a pretty exciting program to be involved in.
Wow. I've got a lot of questions just from the opening. So, multi-generation business. Yep. So you said you started, well, your dad and your granddad, grandfather, they started the business?
Yep.
What did it look like back then?
So, well, firstly, we started in a nursery. We had a nursery at Plimpton that we grew seedlings, and then we went into indoor plants. My dad had a passion for palm trees. Yep. So one of my brothers went off and did horticulture in Ryde in New South Wales, and then I had a passion for trucks and tractors and etc. So we sort of combined that together and grew that. About 20-something odd years ago, the government decided that recycling was going to be the thing, and we would recycle all the green organics and out of the households, etc. And we, like Jeffries, were considered to be experts. Probably if we look at now what we knew then and what we know today, we knew nothing then. So we sort of took on the role of collecting all the green organics, and then South Australia started probably a little bit earlier than any other state in Australia. Not as probably advanced as California and Germany and Austria and that, but we're certainly up there in terms of what we do in South Australia against the rest of the world.
Even now?
Yep, even now.
Wow. So you mentioned Jeffries. Obviously, I guess there's a duopoly of green waste manufacturing here. Are you guys the 2 main players? Or,
yeah, we're the main 2 players, but there's 3 or 4 smaller ones that take a lot of the local community stuff.
Yep, so they're the green bins that have in the front.
The green bins. But Jeffries and ourselves take the majority of that. Yep. It goes up and down a bit. One minute they're doing 60% and we're doing 40, and then one minute we're doing 60 and they're doing 40. It's competitive. Yep. Although they're a fantastic South Australian company, we work very well with them on the AORA, Australian Organic Recycling Association national body. They're on that as a member, and we work similar to what you do in the landscape industry. You work to better the industry, but you're still competitive out there in the marketplace. I use the analogy, we go out and promote the game tennis, but on the tennis court we go point for point.
Yeah, that's fair. So that's the purchasing or the collection of the green waste to competitive business as much as the sale of the finished product.
Yep. Definitely. So the tenders come up. waste companies generally win those tenders, and then they go to Jeffries and yourself and others, and get a price on taking that material, and subject to those prices and terms and conditions, etc.
That makes sense. So the companies, the waste companies, will collect it.
Yep.
But then they need to get rid of everything. And that might. So when they win those tenders, is it that could be green waste and other wastes?
Generally, they've got to do all of the other parts of it, but generally we're only involved in the green organics part of it. Yep.
And so that'll be 12 months, 36 months, whatever it might be.
Well, sometimes they're 7 and 10 year contracts.
Wow.
Because you've got to invest a lot of money in plant and equipment, etc., for processing it.
Yep.
And some of the investments, most of the machinery is $1.5 million each now.
It's funny when you first start out, it's like everything costs 10 grand, then everything costs 20 grand, then everything costs 500 grand, then everything costs
and actually buying the equipment's really cheap. It's replacing all the parts is the most expensive part. Yeah. Because they all come from Europe or America. Of course, with all the import duties and all the shipping costs and all the rest of it, it's just blown out of proportion at the moment.
And that's if they have spare parts here. I'm assuming most of it has to be freighted in.
Yep, all of it.
So when you win a contract like that, is that so will they go council to council, or will there be a body that kind of collect from 5 different councils and they'll kind of go to?
They tried that. It doesn't work that well. It hasn't worked that well.
The G6 or the council solution thing.
It's not. They seem to be getting better prices because it really depends where you're situated. I mean, if you're right next door to Jeffries or Peats, it's silly to truck it from one end of the world to the other end of the world. So it does
make more sense for one of you to take care of the south and one of you to take care of the north.
It sort of works out a bit like that. But because we've got depots north and south, it sort of changes a little bit.
And then yours is even more north as well, isn't it? So you've got double, triple north, and then real north.
Yeah, that's right.
So how did the Darwin and then the Qatar come about? Was that just opportunity comes up and you say yes, or?
Yeah, because again we deal with a lot of the waste companies. They had an opportunity to do something Darwin. They came to us and said, "Look, this is what we're doing. Would you like to put in a price, and would you like to come up and operate up there, and etc. etc." So we put in a price. Qatar came about because we've got a technology called BiobiN, which is like a little in-vessel composting system. And somebody came to us and asked for the agency for it for India and Sri Lanka and all those places, and then the Middle East.
Yep.
And then they came back to us and said there was this opportunity in the Middle East, which we set up about 5 years ago with a partner, Qatarian partner. Yep. And then we set up and we started selling a few bins, and I think we've got maybe 45 or 50 odd BiobiNs working over there. And then the Qatarian partner then decided to build a composting site. So we were in there advising him on all of that sort of stuff as well.
Yep.
And then the World Cup came up, and we just happened to be in a great position to show them what we were doing and how we were doing it, and they wanted to be really, really green. And so we got a real opportunity to tender on that, and we were successful on it. But just on the organics.
There you go.
Yeah, just on
the organics for the World
so
Cup.
the company actually did all the recycling of everything that was in there.
Yep.
But we just did the organics part of it.
Yep. So what that was, I guess it was, they were keen on that because of the amount of eyes on Qatar at the time.
Yeah,
it was important to
yeah.
Have positives come out of the World Cup.
Yeah, and you saw so many things that was negative about Qatar winning it and all the rest of it. They were out there to show that they could do it properly. Yep. All our dealings have been nothing but so professional. Yep. It's been absolutely exciting to work with them. And we work with FIFA too, and FIFA actually did 3 or 4 videos of it, showing what the organics was doing, and the trial that we did with the Emir's Cup. That's the President's own cup. So we did all that, and that was 75 tonne, and then they were really impressed with that, so we went further. So
what is a BiobiN? Obviously we can probably cut in some visual into the visual, but for the people listening.
Just quickly, it looks like a skip bin, but it's got 4 pipes in the bottom, and they've got holes in them. We blow oxygen through the food waste or the agricultural waste that goes in the bin. Yep. We try and get a layer of carbon, woody, chippy material in between food waste or whatever, the organic matter that goes in there. And then that starts the composting process going. In a lot of instances, the bins are just picked up and taken back to a composting depot, but we can finish them off completely inside the bin and make a compost out of it.
So if someone bought, so say you own a vineyard or something that produced a decent amount of green waste, they could have a bin delivered.
Yep.
And then you could go out and aerate it on site.
Yep.
So you'd have to take it away.
Yep.
Could they aerate it themselves, or it's
yeah. Well, they can. It just comes back to economics on it. Yep, but certainly they can do that.
Yep, and we could use that compost for on-site.
Yeah, and we do a lot of on-site compostings for vineyards where they get all their grape mark and their stalk and everything, and then we take semi-finished compost to them, mix it 50-50, and then windrow turn that and compost that and give them a report on it, and then they use that out in the vineyard. So that happens quite a lot.
So doing something like that, there'd obviously need to be a critical mass of compost, otherwise it's not worth you taking out a windrow turner.
Yeah, that's right. With a front end loader or whatever we use to turn it, but it's got to be tonnage.
Oh, because you can use a loader, you don't have to do.
Yeah, you can use a loader, you can use an excavator.
But those siege-shaped machines that turn it,
they just haven't got enough tonnage to to justify the freighting, etc.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I spoke to Lachlan about the availability of waste product, and that's obviously a big liability for a company like yours. Like if there's less green waste today than there was 2 years ago, but there's a higher demand for finished product, what does that look like for you guys? Like, you just have to manage your costs, or?
Yeah, well, I think again, there's still 200,000 or 300,000 tonne, and again, this is a guesstimation as much as anything. It's still going to landfill, so there's still of food waste and green waste still going to landfill. So there's still a lot of material that needs to be recycled, and the governments all around Australia are working hard on this. Our South Australian government, Greening Industries, is working hard on getting all that out. Part of the problem is contamination, and part of the problem is that public still need a lot more education on where to put all their materials. A lot of people still don't know that you can put food waste in a green bin. So, that education. So that's going in the red bin, and that goes to landfill. So, there's still, whether it's 100,000 tonne or 300,000 tonne, somewhere in the middle will probably be the right figure. That's still going to landfill. That can go to Jeffries and ourselves. So let's say it's 50-50. There's 100,000 tonne.
So what's that, another 50% capacity for you, or 30%?
30. Yeah.
Okay, so if you were in charge of the government ad campaign and you had like a 15 or 30 second spot, what would you be saying to the South Australian community around that?
Well, the first thing is the product that we're currently getting from the households is so contaminated. It is just a major problem for the industry. And AORA is part of an international group now of associations around the world, and the biggest issue for composters is contamination. And so the first thing is education on contamination, to try and show the public how important it is to keep plastic and glass and just crap out of it. We've had everything from urns with ashes in it to front ends of HQs to you name it. We've had it in a wheelie bin. We've even had rock wheelers and all sorts of things. They compost down quite well, but you don't want them, and
don't want the collar.
So that's the first thing. And then the second thing is to keep educating them what they can put in that bin without contamination, which will actually move everything out of the red bin into the green bin, and that's part of the education program.
And obviously they're trying to do that at not grassroots, but from a very young age. Obviously the children, the schooling seemed to be when I was at school, which was 25 years ago. That's when, obviously you're saying 27 years ago, they started doing it. That's when they were talking about the different bins. Is that do you think that's still the key focus?
Absolutely.
Educate the children, and then it's a generational change?
Yeah, but educate them for the right reasons, not bloody about climate change and all the other, just to try and educate them for the right reasons.
But things they can actually impact.
Yes. Yeah. Because that's the thing that most people say about climate change is how do we act on it? How do we do something? Well, there's your first thing. Get your green waste out of the landfill and make sure that we get it back into soil, because our soils in Australia are completely stuffed. So we need, it as a landscaper, the first thing you've got to look at is the soil and make sure that you improve the quality of the soil so that your plants can live properly. Even yesterday I bought some fruit. It was the most tasteless, awful fruit that I've ever eaten, and it's all about the soil health and the microbiology within that soil to actually change the chemicals in the soil so that the fruits and the sugars actually increase in the plant. And the only way you're going to get nice, tasty fruit is sugars. And if you don't get your soil healthy and if you don't get the microbiology right, you won't get good, tasty fruit. you can do it. You know, you can buy a banana and you can go, oh, how good is that? You go and take another one and you might as well eat cardboard. And it's just about the health of the soil and the way that the soil's looked after.
And obviously, in lieu of quality soils, I guess we tend to be over-fertilising or fertilising to kind of get that growth. I'm assuming that there's probably studies around the cost reduction of the amount of amendments you have to add to your soil if your soils are healthy. I'm guessing that stuff.
There's massive paperwork and quotes, you know, on the costings that have been done on the improvement of soil and the reduction of pesticides, weedicides, and chemicals. Yep. And again, I'm not particularly anti-chemicals, but we've just overused so much of everything to the point that we're now detrimental to our soil and our healthy soils and healthy food.
How do our soils compare to the other states? Like you said, South Australia's got bad soils. Is it kind of the same nationwide, or have we been over farming? Or?
Well, I think again we've just overused fertilisers in every instance. I was in Japan about 5 or 6 years ago talking about composting, and they said, "Oh, our soils are all rich and volcanic." Well, yeah, but you've been putting fertiliser out for the last 100 years, and you put no organic matter back, so you haven't fed your soil, and you haven't fed the microbiology in the soil. So therefore, you haven't got a healthy soil anymore. You've got a good black carbon-rich soil, but you haven't got any life in the soil, you know. And I remember this story 20-odd years ago. I was at a workshop in Mildura for the viticultural industry, and the keynote speaker at the time was Robert White, Professor Robert White from RMIT Melbourne. He's now retired. And I happened to have the opportunity to have breakfast with him. And I said to him, look, I don't understand what carbon is. I don't understand what CO2 is. I just don't even understand the science of it. I said, how do you build carbon up in your soil? And he said, feed your soil. And he went on eating his breakfast. And I said, and he said, no, that's it. Feed your soil. If you're not feeding your soil, you're not feeding your microbes, you're not building your carbon, and so on and so forth. So
he's saying feed your soil. If he was to finish that, will make that sentence a bit longer. With what?
Oh, organic matter.
Yep.
You know, any form of organic matter, which is, you know, if you look at the way the microbes chew it all down and break it all down, then you'll start off with very liable material that's live and active compost, and by the time they've finished eating everything on it, it'll become recalcitrant carbon that'll stay on the soil for thousands of years. But it takes 1,000 years to get to that level of completely feeding your soil.
So you can't overfeed your soil, not in a generation.
Well, they sort of, the reading that I get, and remember I'm not a scientist bootlace, but the reading I get is that at the end of the day, 4.5% carbon in the soil seems to be the sweet spot. Mm-hmm. I'm sure there's plenty of soils around that have got more and do very, very well, but that seems to be, and most of our agricultural soils are, 0.5%, 1%. So we've got a long way to go, and building that soil up. There's some vineyards up there in the Clare Valley that have taken their carbon levels up to 8%, and they're nearly at the point where they wouldn't have to water their vineyards
if they get the right rainfall and everything.
Yeah.
Do you think that it would be the case for lawn as much as gardens?
Most definitely.
Yeah.
I think that's even if you look at the parklands, or if you look at all the ovals that we do no work in terms of building that carbon up. We do no work in terms of the microbiology in that soil, etc., etc. Golf courses, they for some reason don't want a high cation exchange capacity, which confuses the crap out of me. I mean, you would think that in a golf course, instead of pumping fertiliser, you'd want to build up your organic matter so you don't have to put as much fertiliser on. But for some reason, they seem to be bent on the fertiliser way.
Can you explain that a bit more? So you said high cation exchange.
So when you put organic matter in, again, remember, I'll keep saying this probably about 10 times. I'm not a scientist, but your organic matter is both positively charged and negatively charged. So by adding organic material to soils, they'll attract those nitrogens, etc., and they'll hang on to them, and they won't let them get washed through to the system. So they'll hang on to them. So you get a lot better benefit out of your fertiliser by improving your cation exchange capacity.
Okay, and so if a golf course or Adelaide Oval or whoever, and
Yeah.
I'm not saying that they aren't doing it. I don't know.
No.
Would it have a higher input of organics? Then the argument would be that then they could put less of the fertilisers in, because the fertilisers would actually stay in the soil.
Yeah, that's right, and be used properly. Adelaide Oval's a little bit different, and the major ovals are a little bit different because they've got to recoup so quickly after a big rain. They need to have a massive infiltration of the rain and the water.
Yeah.
So they're a little bit different. They don't want to hold any water. They need drainage. So that's a little bit different. And to be honest with you, we only learnt this just recently from Adelaide Oval.
Yep.
Hoffy at Adelaide Oval just taught us that just recently, because we thought, why wouldn't you put more organic matter, etc. And as he explained, they've got to get that return they're available, because they've got so many intense media, music, sports, cricket, football, everything back on the oval.
Well, he's got one of the tough. It's funny. It's like the cricket, the captain of the Australian cricket team's got one of the toughest jobs in the world. But I think being the
oval curator,
you saw with the Sydney Test, I guess didn't produce a result that they wanted. It went, what was it, 2.5 or 3 days? Everyone's not Sydney. Sorry, was it Brisbane? The Sydney Test, it just rained. But it's a tough gig, and we were at the cricket on Saturday, and the game's finished, and Hoffy's out there getting the next whatever's ready.
Function
for the next
ready,
thing.
yeah, that's right.
So from a lawn standpoint, how do you get organics in? Because obviously, you can't have bark chips, and you just have to get very micro.
Well, again, there's 3 or 4 products out there now that are pelletised in the granules. Like we make a granule now out of fully composted material. The humic and fulvic values of those are very high, and those humic and fulvics actually help the cation exchange capacity, etc. Okay. So we've got granulated products now. It's a bit hard to get the nitrogen levels right up on these, because you go through a dryer, and then with the heat, it takes a lot of the ammonia off. So it's hard to get them right up to very, very high. So you do have to still add some urea or whatever to it if you want to build your nitrogen up. But slowly.
So what the NPK of that would kind of be 3s and 4s.
Yeah.
So like a dynamic lifter.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's adding organic.
Yeah.
And how often would someone do that?
Because if you think about that, both the dynamic lifts are our products, and many others is made from is made from organic material, but they have the nitrogen level. I was with a mate of mine who was a landscaper in Sydney who was going to throw fertiliser out. And I said, yeah, but you're not feeding your soil. And he went, I've been doing this for 30 years and I've never thought about that. I've only just been throwing fertiliser consistently. So I said to him, we'll do a bit of both, do 50-50. And that way you're going to put that organic matter back into your soil.
Mm. Yeah, it makes sense. The reason I'm, I guess, probing so much on that, obviously we've got a large community of lawn interested people, and obviously we've got a lawn fertiliser brand, and my lawn at home hasn't been great, and I think I went chemical heavy. I think I know I went chemical. I went stupid, and so I've just left it this season and just kind of did a very basic fertilising regime at the start of probably or the middle of December or the start of December. And Matt was joking. He's like, "You should put some organic compost on your lawn," because we have a client that does that. And I laughed, and then it makes sense because it adds that heat component as well, especially if you get it at the right time. But I kind of if it's a usable area, how practical is doing a renovation on a lawn and then top dressing with organic compost?
Yeah, well, again, if you're going to core it, you can put it over, rake it over with your granule products.
Yeah, take your cores away.
Your cores away, etc.
Yeah. And then rather than putting sand back in, which has no nutritional value at all, put organic compost back in. Yeah. Maybe that will be my test case.
And I've got a lawn, and it's made of that non-wetting sands, and mate, the more I put in, the better it gets. But it's probably going to take me 20, 30 years to actually change it, because what they say is the mallee tree has dropped all the wax on every particle of sand, and they say that literally, and the only things that will do it is clay, organic matter, moisture, and microbiology. That's the only thing that will remove it, but it's going to take forever to change it.
As soon as you said that, it made me laugh, because we were talking about you before you came in, because I was prepping for it, and I said, he's been with Peats nearly 50 years, and then Duffy's like, what would he be, 70? I'm like,
71.
I'm not going to ask, but and you're talking 20 years, like, what's the plan? Like, is retirement something that you think about, or you enjoy business and you kind of like now enjoying the fruits of the labour of the last 5 decades, or?
Well, two things. Firstly, I enjoy what I do, and so if the health holds out, I want to stay as long as I can and be involved as much as I can, but I want to be able to take a Friday and a Monday off and do those sorts of things.
On your terms.
Yeah, but somebody said to me the other day, you've been in business so long, you're such a success, and business is going well, you can take your hands off the steering wheel. And I said, mate, you never know when you're going to hit a pothole. And I can tell you, last year was the toughest year we and this industry has had for 20, 30 years. We got hit with all the rain on weekends. We got hit with sites that we couldn't get into. We couldn't get deliveries. We couldn't find truck drivers. Talk about, and then fuel prices. We use a couple 100,000 litres of diesel a month. And
a couple of 100,000 litres a month.
Yes, and so fuel prices going up $1 a litre, and you never pick that price up. You've lost 2-3 months of trying to get your prices up, and so $200,000-300,000 just sucked out of cash flow. Just makes business really, really tough. And there's not one person I talk to that hasn't suffered in some way through this position. Even today, we've got 2 drivers off, 2 drivers gone to hospital, 2 trucks sitting around. As much as I worry about the drivers, I've also got to worry about not getting deliveries done. And, so you never
because you're worried about the truck not moving doesn't take away any care for the drivers.
No.
You can have both. And that is actually the challenge of being a business owner, I think.
That's right. Sometimes you're seen as a callous arsehole, but at the end of the day, you've got to make some pretty tough decisions sometimes.
I think it's like, if you make it like a sport analogy, you kind of, no one player is bigger than the team, and the idea is to get the team to win the game or the premiership or whatever. And by caring about the company as a whole, you're actually caring about the individuals, because you look at a situation like in the last 2 years where we've been forced to stop. If you've got a strong company, you're not standing people down. You're not flinching and firing everyone, where a lot of people shut themselves and went, you're all fired. And then a month later, the government are like, no, don't worry about it. Like, we'll cover you. But then the true colours have already been shown.
Yeah, that's right.
And it's too late.
Well, we're fortunate through COVID. We didn't put anybody off. We didn't have any shutdowns. We kept progress. And in fact, COVID was a bit easier than physically last year.
Yeah. I feel like that we've just got almost like the wave from the tsunami. Like it happened, and then last year was all the all the economic change, and then all the even individuals going through that period of like, I don't know if I want to do this anymore.
Yep.
Or job hopping. So much job hopping happened, and then it stopped.
Absolutely.
So now you've got these people that have either they've had to go to the job that they chose last. They might not be happy, and they might be moving around a bit. But I don't know. I feel like there's a bit of a change season.
Look at Victoria, how many policemen they lost because they didn't agree with the mandates and they didn't agree with the policies that came in.
And some of them won't come back.
No.
Because they'll go, well, hang on a sec, I'm getting paid the same amount of money. I don't have to deal with crime and rosters and shift work.
Abuse.
And abuse. And I don't know. There's a few jobs I think we don't pay enough, and that's one of them. Even in medical practice, like as in not the doctors but the nurses, politicians. I think you put so much focus on these people doing a good job, but then you don't give them the incentive to do it.
But Clint, we don't need pay rises. What we need is bloody governments to stop wasting our money.
Yeah.
I mean, consistently our overheads are put up because of government's waste. And that's why we all need pay rises. That's why rates and taxes are going up. That's why everything's going up, is because of wasted money from these bloody governments.
Yeah.
And I'm politically one way swayed, but at the end of the day, they're all making these mistakes, and they all are wasting that much money.
Well, I don't think it really matters who's in charge. It's still the same. It's the same game, isn't it? So what's the solution for that? Too long for a 1 hour podcast.
Well, we need another hour on that one.
So on the, I guess on the business side, obviously, you've travelled a bit now with what's going on in Qatar. Last time I spoke to you, I think you were talking about going overseas for a conference. Is that are you now at a point where they're asking you to speak at conferences, or are you kind of still just walking around shaking hands? And
no, I've done a few speeches. Again, we had our conference here in Adelaide, Aora conference in Adelaide back in June I think it was. We had 225 people turn up. Of course, I'm the chairman of it nationally. So I do a bit of speaking at that. I've done a couple of others. I went to Singapore and did a talk 3-4 years ago. So again, a few of those things come up. This year, the US Composting Council conference is on the end of this month. My grandson's going to go to that to have a good look at the US and what's happening there, because there's some very good innovation coming out of the States.
Yep. Is that a market that you're interested in, or is that it's just more the knowledge?
We got some BiobiNs in the States, but then unfortunately the young lad that took it on had a heart attack and died, and so that was right at the beginning of COVID. And of course, then I haven't been able to get over there and find a new agent and set it all up again. So that's fallen in a hole. But these things happen.
Obviously, something like a BiobiN would be susceptible to knockoffs and copies and that kind of thing. How have you managed the trademark and the protection of that internationally? Is that all covered in every country?
Yeah, we've got a patent and everything on that. Again, the thing is that there isn't too many. If you look around the world, there isn't too many people in the composting business, believe it or not. You know, the US is probably the biggest conference. They might get 800 people there. So if you look at that in a context of the 360 million or whatever it is Americans, that's not many. No. And if you look at that in context of the rest of the world, there's not too many interested in this space. So there's not a lot of people that really are interested as such. So we haven't worried about that. When we got them into Japan, we did a partnership with Mitsubishi Corporation. So it was like having a bit of a rock wheeler standing next to you. We didn't have to worry too much. But again, that all fell over after doing massive trials with them for 5 years. Successful. I went to the 55th floor of Mitsubishi Corporation, sat there with 12 senior executives of Mitsubishi, and I went, well, boys, the trial's been so successful, off we go. And they went, no, not until the government makes a decision. That was 5-6 years ago. And so, so recycling, I've learnt that unless the government understands and is passionate, and again, we don't have to worry about talking about climate change. You just look at the pollution that we've got out in the world, and you look at the crap that's been washed out into the sea, and you look at all that sort of stuff. We just did a trial with Kimberly-Clark on seeing whether you can recycle nappies.
I saw that on your website.
1.5 billion nappies in Australia. Imagine how many in the world. And in India and those places, they go in the creeks and they go in the rivers, and they then got washed out to sea, and you wonder why our seas are getting polluted with plastic.
What you said about fruit and veg, sea life's
no different.
They're not on their own. They're going to taste different, and they're not going to grow as well.
Well, I was reading the other day, there's 130,000 sites, and again, just because I got it off Google doesn't mean that it's true. 130,000 sites around the world that drop their sewage into the ocean. Like, when are we going to wake up? I mean, that's the issue. If you believe in climate change, good on you. If you don't believe in it, they are the issues that we've got to address.
Yeah. Well, they're real, aren't they? So what do you? The lack of government interest or support in recycling obviously has an economic or vote-driven connection. Obviously, I'm guessing that the Australian population are, as voters, more interested in recycling than, say, Japan.
To a degree. Some spots of Japan are way ahead. And again, typical Japan, I say that in a positive manner, not a negative manner, but they segregate to the 5 boxes, 6 boxes. They don't segregate like we have 3 bins. Yep. They segregate to the nth degree sort of thing. So a little bit, that's good in one way, but it then becomes another problem on the commercial end of it. So again, I don't know the answer on all these things. One thing I like to say is I think that while we're arguing still today about climate change, and we miss the whole point of recycling and the benefits that can offer to the types of climate change. And so I think that we miss these 130,000 sites that are dropping sewage into the ocean and et cetera, et cetera.
Regardless of what your opinion is on climate change, dropping waste in the ocean is disgusting.
Yes.
And we swim in it. I was there last week, like in the ocean,
Dropping it in the river and dropping it in the creeks. I mean, I was in India where, and again, I'm not picking on Indians, and some of the sites that they've cleaned up in India, some of the things that they've done are just spectacular. But dropping it into a river that you drive over and you dry reach...
well, that's all they've ever known, isn't it? It's not... It's like you're not picking on them. an attack. It's probably a lack of education or awareness around what other parts of the world might be doing.
But again, I was with the mayor of Chennai once, and he said to me, "What do we do with plastic?" And I said, "Until there's a value put on it, nothing's going to happen with it, And so all that plastic in all the streets and all the rivers and all the stuff nothing's going to happen until they put a true value on it."
What do you mean by that? As in when it becomes resellable to be able to buy it and recycle it, or to penalise them financially?
No, I think find a market for the product. It's a little bit like the Red Scheme, where you took the plastic back to Woolies or Coles and put it, and that's all crashed, fallen over.
We were talking about that with my mum on Saturday. She's like, those bags aren't there anymore.
No.
And I said, I don't really know what happened, but I said to her, I guarantee you that they were expecting China to take the bags. China stopped taking plastic, and then it just fell apart.
Well, a combination of both of that, but equally we didn't create the demand here in Australia, and it's a real shame because the system was really good, and they did not go out. I saw something on Facebook the other day that these people ought to be jailed and all the rest of that. They did not go out there to create this problem.
They were trying.
Try really bloody hard. I met the lady that ran it, and they had an honest, true. Want to get this right. Well, the markets weren't created and the technologies didn't come on quick enough. I think the governments could have done a lot more to help it and potentially expand it. Well, once those sorts of things happen, now that'll set us back, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 years.
Not just because it didn't happen, but because of the negative thoughts why it didn't happen.
If you went out there and tried to set that same thing up tomorrow, the people knock the hell out of you. And
so who's going to set that up? Someone, an ultra wealthy.
So what I understand, and please don't quote this because I don't know how accurate this is, that the ACCC has given permission to a couple of waste companies to sit down together to try and work out a solution from it.
When they're working together. Yep.
Because again, I think that's one of the smartest things that's happened. Because I think again the ACCC plays a really important role in actually making some of these things happen because it's not big enough for one waste company to do it. They need to bring 3 or 4 or 5 together to make both the volume and the logistics of it all to happen properly. But you can't do it under the current ACCC rulings.
So the plastics that we're talking about, like the shopping bags and bread bags and Ziploc bags and that kind of thing, and you might not know the answer to this, but what's the process look like to get them turned into something that can be used again?
It can't.
It's not. But it would be expensive and. I'm guessing carbon impactful.
It's the capital. I mean, from what I understand, it's the capital. The technology I don't understand. The capital is what I think is the biggest.
Energy usage as well.
Oh yeah, all that. And then you got to hook it up to solar and wind to make sure that it's carbon neutral, and so we make our own rods for our own back in some of this stuff, don't we?
Yeah, I was listening to a podcast the other day with a guy who was talking about a lot of solar panels. They're like it's almost 10 years of use for their carbon neutrality to occur because of the amount of carbon going into making solar, and that wind, because we're getting higher and higher, is going to be the one because of the ability for it to work 24/7 rather than just when the sun's out.
And then I was reading another one where they're only going to last 25 years, and some of them are not recyclable.
The wind, the
towers, or solar.
Yeah.
So there's another problem that we've got to face, and whether that's correct or not, and which ones are not recyclable and which ones are, I don't know. But talk about confusing.
But if we wind it right back to what you were saying, even if regardless of what you believe around solar and carbon and whatever, not throwing your shit in the ocean is the right thing to do.
And then getting that clean and getting it back into soil. We get a healthy soil. We build the carbon up in the soil, and we clean up the ocean. So there's 3 or 4 ticks in that. That we've got to concentrate on those solutions.
Is human waste being composted in any countries? Is that
it's
or processed?
Yeah, it's been processed in Australia, US, etc. But there's other complications with that at the moment. That
health complications.
Yeah, well, we need another 10 hours to discuss that one.
All right, we won't go down that path. So in the past, you've been. Chair or president of not random associations, but relevant associations. You were in the Landscape Association for a period. What made you get involved in that?
Well, again, we as a family have had, we've done a lot of business over the years with the landscape industry, the nursery industry. So that's a passion to be involved and to communicate and to be part of that. So I did 4 or 5 years on the board of MLSA.
And Nagisa?
No, I'd never been on Nagisa. My brother was. He's passed away now, but he was on for several years. And put a lot of time and effort into the nursery industry.
But AOR is the one that's...
Yeah, well, I've been chairman for, 10 or 15 years or something, and I've got voted back in again the other day. I think this will be my last year. We've got a young vice president, and I've already warned him, look out, next year you'll be taken over. So
I think that's important to have that succession. Obviously, different associations have in their constitution to protect that, similar to government, I guess. But sometimes it doesn't work when there's no succession in place, and then you kind of who's going to do it?
Well, that's been a bit of the position we've been in up until now. And part of the National Executive Office that we had, he started this conversation about succession planning, and so we've put that in place, and that's part of saying, look out, you're going to be the next chairman.
So is it a national or
national?
So you're the national chair. What kind of things would you be working towards? And obviously you can't talk out of.
No. It's well, two things. We lobby the federal government. We lobby each of our states. So we've got state bodies, and each of the states talk with our environment ministers and all the et cetera, about what our issues are and what we'd like to do, and then what are the policies that the government's coming out, and then how can the industry be part of that, making that policy happening. Because again, it's no good wishing that we're going to reduce waste by 80% by 2030 if there is not a big positive industry there behind to do the work. You can have all the wish lists in the world, but if you haven't got an industry that's supporting it and working with it, those wishes are never going to happen.
Well, it just becomes political, like commentary with no supporting. I think it was in California they wanted to have all 100% electric cars by 2030 or something, and again, another podcast I was listening to the other day said never in our history of ever have we ever been able to double the required metal inputs in an industry in under 10 years, and that's what effectively they need to do with copper and aluminium and tin.
Plus the power lines, and plus the extra power, and what are they going to use? Coal, uranium, again.
Well, they won't use nuclear, but anyway, different conversation. So what's the plan? So you're keen to keep working. Have you've got? Is there a Peat 2.0 in the business? Like you said, your grandson's keen. And this is probably, if he watches this will be an odd question, but I'm guessing he's not just getting lifted into a position. He's he's earning his position.
Yeah, he started on the bagging line. He was on there for 12, 18 months on the bagging line. Then he went on the front end loaders, and then he's been on the grinders. He's been on the windrow turner, and now we're just probably 12 months ago we started bringing him into the financial meetings. Going through all the balance sheets and spreadsheets and cash flows, and to get him to understand that. He's done a diploma in business management, so he's done that on the side. He's done a couple of other courses on the side as well.
He's more qualified than me.
Me.
I was going to say, but you've had 50 years of learning. He's going to have to accelerate his learning. Obviously.
But when I say that, 30 plus years ago I did a diploma in business management at Australian Institute of Management. I did a couple of introductory accounting courses, just to understand the basis of accounting. I did a costing course at TAFE, so I've done some basic qualifications in terms of those areas. I've done a couple of project management courses. I've done a couple through the uni and so on and so forth, but they're only 1 day, 2 day courses sort of thing. But I've done a few, and Mac's doing that. I'm trying to get him into as many of those courses as I can. You only got to pick up 1 or 2 things from each course.
Well, I think most people only pick up 1 or 2 things from each course, especially if you're kind of deep in your craft. I think there's a combination of things. One, there'll be some people that he'll meet in those courses that he'll probably connect with, and that he'll have as his
sort of mentor,
unofficial board, someone to refer to. But also the 1 or 2 things you pick up. And I used to be very cynical about kind of paid help especially business coaches and mentors, and that, especially if it's paid, because it's like, well, it's anyway.
Yeah.
But you will always pick something up.
Yeah.
And I guess like coaching, there's tennis players out there that don't have coaches that you could definitely see becoming better tennis players if they had a coach.
Yeah.
They don't see that.
Yeah.
I think it's the same with, and he's lucky to have obviously you doing the same mentoring as well. So what does your, if you're doing 3 or 4 days a week, what are your days made up? Is it mainly meetings now?
Yeah.
And would he come into those meetings or?
Well, most of the time I try and get him to the meetings so that he understands my thinking, and so if I happen to drop dead tomorrow, he's sort of got an idea of what I was thinking.
So he would, like if you did, and I hope you don't, stop working tomorrow, he would take over straight away?
That's the plan.
Yeah. Is that a board decision, or it's all just
well,
director?
We don't actually have a board.
So it's director-led, so it's your wishes or your statement wishes or whatever it might be.
So my wife and I own the business, so that's it. So
it's your call.
It's our call. And again, the idea is that he would be trained up a lot more, that he can make those decisions. And as he's getting more and more confident, I can see that I can say to him, well, you make that decision on that. You make that decision.
Best way to do it, I think.
Yeah. And if it doesn't work, well, you fix it. And if it does work, you can brag about it.
Yeah. And then if you get stuck, you come to me. I think that's no different to the management philosophy I try to take here. And I did a video this morning in the car. I do a video every day in the car, and I was like, I'm not helping anymore. Like, they know what they're doing. The problem is I keep saying yes and go work behind the counter or whatever else, but I can't do it anymore because otherwise we're never going to be able to grow to the size that I want to grow to.
And that's certainly been a problem I've had over the years because you enjoy it, but you're sitting there and sometimes I say, well, I don't know what I'm paying you that good money for you make that decision. What are you coming back to me for? If it doesn't work, and again, it's if you learn your own faults as you go along.
Well, if you're on holidays, they're going to make a decision.
Do
you and your wife travel much? Or is it?
No, well, we like.
Well, except not obviously with work, but
try
to kind of sprinkle some leisure into that.
Well, at least they don't like coming overseas with me because I work, and I don't know if you know it. Even there at the back of every hotel you stay in, there's a rubbish pit. So you always sticking your nose in.
I guess some countries you've got to be careful doing that.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah. Some countries you wouldn't do it because it's owned by somebody that wants to take that waste out of there. So they, when you see some of the way that some of the people in India and that live, it's damn scary.
This might be an incorrect comment, but there's some waste management in some parts of the world is run not by the government, and is it a dangerous place to be involved in waste in some countries?
Well, again, I understand some countries in Europe are particularly bad. I think in America originally, I'm going back 20, 30 years ago, I think it was damn scary. I don't think that's so much a case now. I'm sure there's some of that in there, but where I go and the people that I've met,
a bit more
which is probably seen as corruption anyway.
Well, you're gonna have trouble. So, obviously, nowadays environmental impact is such a big buzz. What is it? The social and environmental impact. Is it easy for your business to have a positive environmental impact because of what you're doing, or do you still have the same challenges? You're still using trucks, and how do you manage that? And what are you focusing on?
Look, it's still a problem for us internally. I mean, just even getting our blokes to, we've got recycling bins there that put everything in. Trying to get our blokes to even put it in the right bin is hard. Continually educating, because everybody comes from a different walk of life, and so you've got to try and continually educate, and so that's the same situation we've got with the public, so on and so forth. Of course, we're trying to buy Euro 5s and Euro 6s trucks. Our biodiesel plant isn't working at the moment because the front end of it doesn't.
What's a Euro 5, Euro 6? Is that a standard?
Well, they can run 100% on biodiesel.
Okay. So you get what do you call it? A Euro 5 or a Euro 6?
Yeah, they can take 100% biodiesel. Whereas a lot of the American stuff originally, I mean, it's changing every year. Every new truck that comes out is different. But you can only get 20% biodiesels in the American stuff originally.
So how does that work? You just shandy your own diesel?
Just shandy it.
Yeah.
When the plant was working, we did that, and it worked very, very well. And our intent was to get about 20 to 30% of our trucks on biodiesel. But the front end front end of the plant didn't meet the current work health and safety, and I need $500,000 to finish it off. So I've had to park it for a while.
Wait till the pile gets bigger and then grab it off.
I wished I had it working now because, again, 65, 70 cents a litre.
Well, that's the crazy thing. So you're talking about $200,000 to $300,000 of fuel costs of whatever.
Yeah, I know.
Your $500,000's there.
Yeah, but you still got to borrow the money. You still got to. It's like any maths, isn't it? It looks good, but you still got to go and borrow the money.
And then what do you do with all those trucks?
That's right.
Yeah. So how many trucks do you run? How many are you running?
20
trucks.
Yeah.
And are they all those? I know, obviously, we buy from you at Railways. I've seen the
walk-in floors.
Are they all them now?
No, we've got truck and trailers.
You're moving through your truck. Like, you wouldn't buy another truck and trailer if you bought a
Oh
truck.
yeah, just see some of the vineyards and some of the potato growers and that we supply truck and trailers.
You have to.
Good, and you can get more tonnage on them.
Yeah.
And when you're doing some of these big runs, because we go into Victoria and New South Wales as well with trucks.
So you want as many tons as possible behind one person. Yeah.
So we're looking at triples even at the moment.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's a lot of trucks. Yeah, when I bought Railways, like my contract reading and due diligence isn't probably one of my strengths. And then I was like, why would anyone want to have a business with transport involved? Like, it's just crazy. No one wants to pay for it. Everyone that works in transport wants to get paid more. All the costs are going up, and no one's willing to pay the cost of the delivery. I'm like, this is silly.
I know. Tell me about it.
I don't know why anyone would want to do it.
Tell me about it. It's just nobody wants to pay delivery, and you call out somebody to do a repair on your TV or your screen. They want $180, $190 an hour. And you sort of think, well, we're running a bloody $500,000 truck for that.
Yeah, I think it's gonna stop.
Yeah.
That everything that, like, it's the kind of that what goes up must come down, or those economic bubbles. I mean, you've obviously been in business a lot longer than I have, so you've seen cycles, and it can't just keep going. Like, it has to pop.
Well, we buy a bit of stuff out of China and see the shipping costs have already crashed down.
Or even containers. I had a call from a guy the other day saying we've got 40 footers again for $3,000 or something. Like, they've all, everything's,
that's right.
It's just about surviving. Even oh my God, we bought a Toyota, an SR, 2017 SR for $50,000 because I needed a car. And then my car guy that we buy new cars from rang me. He's like, I can get you a brand new 2022, or it'd be 22, landed in Feb for, I won't say the exact price, but not much more. And I was like, oh my gosh, because it was just that window of time when it was like that. And anyone that bought stuff there, you still got the finance on it. You still got, or you've paid for it. I can't resell that ute for what I paid for it.
That's right.
So, with your environmental impact, obviously moving to biodiesel was going to be a positive from from the optics,
emissions,
externally,
and,
but also
financially,
yeah, and genuinely. What else? I mean, obviously, if you're doing recycling.
So if you look at the new trucks today, for example, the Scanias we get a weekly report on the efficiency of the truck drivers, whether they're overusing braking, whether they're using fuel, and they actually give you the CO2 measurements, reductions or increases. So if a driver's used more fuel than what he should have, your CO2 level's gone up, etc. So that's some fantastic information.
You can incentivise your drivers in a way.
Yes.
If you wanted to, if that was worth doing.
Yeah.
To drive a certain way.
That's right.
That's interesting.
The problem we've had at the moment is trying to keep drivers because they're so transient, as you said earlier, and then
that's the best word to describe them.
Yeah.
I wouldn't necessarily use that word, but I wouldn't use the word that I want to use on camera. But yeah, they're an interesting. They're completely different to any other workforce I've ever dealt with.
Yeah. But I think that workforce has changed completely since COVID.
Yeah. Yep.
COVID.
I don't know if it's luck or it's just good management, but we've got our driver. I think we've got the best drivers we've ever had at Railways now, and a lot of it's probably attributed to some of them coming from other industries. They're not traditionally a driver. They've worked in the mines and they've come back, and they've got a truck license and they want to be close to home to see their kids, or they've worked in maybe not chefing but something else, and they've got a truck license and they just want to be able to have a job. Because driving for someone like us, you're only working business hours. You're not doing interstates and
that's right,
and whatever else. But I guess that will all not be their concern when we've got Tesla auto trucks that just drop it off.
Not in my lifetime.
Who knows, man? Who knows? Last time we had dinner together accidentally at the Nagisa, you weren't drinking.
No.
And I asked you, Right, you're not drinking.
20 plus 20 years. 20 years.
And it's been a case of not today for 20 years.
Yeah.
Yep. Do you want to talk about that? Like you just.
Oh yeah, well,
you just stopped. Look, alcohol's something that I have my battles with all the time. So, and a lot of especially off the back of COVID, I think a lot of people were drinking to manage their stress and anxiety and whatever else.
Yeah. Oh look, I drank because I enjoyed it. I didn't drink because I needed it.
Yeah.
I wasn't hanging out at 3 o'clock in the afternoon for a drink. But when I got knocked off and went home, I really enjoyed it. Probably the Adelaide 500 fixed me. Yeah. I had a big 3-day weekend at 4 day.
I always have a week off after the 500. I never drink again.
Took me 3 days to get over the hangover and decided that was it. And I'd been drinking since I was about 15, because back in those days you'd go to the front pub at the Rex Hotel and 15 years old and you'd get away with drinking. And
yeah, look,
so,
I was 15 in 97 or 98 and we were able to drink in a pub. Yeah. It wasn't much different. I think it's now you're not going to get away with it.
Yeah. So I just decided one morning when I got up after a big weekend at the Adelaide 500, I'd had it, and I was very, very fortunate. I gave up cold turkey and haven't missed it since. Occasionally when my wife opens a red up, I can smell it and I can go, oh, that smells nice, but I've got no intent at this stage. I keep saying Well,
you said that to me before. You were like, I'm not drinking at the moment.
Yeah.
But that's been like that for 23 years.
Yeah, and I keep saying that because I think the day I say I've given up drinking, it'll be a temptation. So I've just, and I don't want to go back. My productivity increased 300,000%.
Yeah, I worry about that.
And probably clearer thinking.
You can drive everywhere, whatever you want.
But, when I was there, the things that we did and got away with,
less camera phones in.
How lucky we are that one didn't kill anybody and two didn't kill ourselves.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I think about it a lot. Like, it's been a battle for me I would have been 15, maybe even earlier, but just it's always been there.
Yeah.
And you kind of go, and even today, like I didn't drink yesterday, but that would have been my first alcohol-free day for I don't know, maybe 100 days, could be more. And I was like, I just need to be clear. Like, I've got a lot I want to do this year. But I say the same thing all the time. And then you kind of... Saturday night we went to the cricket, I would have had 30 or 40 standard drinks. Sunday morning, I'm like, it shouldn't be like that. But,
that's right.
But you can be... 23 years you can be around it. Those events as well, you tend to bail at 10 o'clock. You've learnt you get to the dinner and go, nothing good happens after 10.
No, well, again, 10 o'clock seems to be the magic mark that everybody's had too many drinks.
As well, like, there's going to be a point where...
You sort of heard the bullshit that many times, you sold it.
Well, that last hour or two of conversation, if you're the only one in the room not drinking...
Yeah, it gets a bit tight. It's funny though, my sister never drank, and she could sit up and talk to drunk people until 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
And yet I get
you
bored
need
with
to either be with the drunks or not with the drunks.
That's right.
Yeah, there you go. So what's the plan for the next 5 years? I guess gradually remove yourself from the day-to-day and just do the things you want to do?
Yeah, try and do that. We've bought a caravan. I think we've used it twice or 3 times, and wouldn't mind getting out and doing a little bit of that, although I've decided I'm not a real caravaner, but I don't mind it. But
explain further, like as in you don't just want to sit in a box for
the caravanning itself is alright, but when you got to move every day and you got to put the tent up and you got to pull the annex in and you got to put all the chairs away and you got to put all the barbecues away and then all that, and then the next night you do the same thing where you sit for 3, 4, 5, 6 days at a time. It's lovely.
What about a Winnebago?
Yeah, we rented one of them once. That didn't go too well, so I think we'll just stick to this caravan if we can.
So no international travel's not as much on the list?
We're talking about going to Qatar in possibly February.
Tax deductible.
Yeah. I don't look at that. I look at 14 hours on a flight, and
I'm guessing you're not sitting at the back anymore.
Yes, I still sit at the back. I will not pay for front.
Really?
It's ridiculous.
I don't know. It's funny because my mate's flying me to Vegas and San Diego. I've never been to the US ever.
You'll love it. You'll love it.
This is a boys' trip. He sold his business, and to celebrate, he's taking 8 of us, of the people that have been involved in his business not his business, but just been side there. I'm probably his newest friend. We've known each other for maybe 3 or 4 years. And he said, I'm flying you all to Vegas. And I'm like, beautiful, 1A. And he's like, no, I said, I'll take 2A, you have 1A. And he's like, nah, man, we're flying economy. We're not. I think I started flying business maybe 4 or 5, or maybe 6 or 7 years ago when I could afford it. And then I flew to Denmark and Serbia recently, probably October or August, and that was paid for by one of our suppliers. So obviously the suppliers aren't going to put you in business class, and I couldn't get an upgrade. I was happy to pay for it, I couldn't get it, and I was sitting in economy, and this is such a first world bullshit problem, but I'm like, never again, because I mean, you and I are much different in size, but I'm just like, oh God, I can't, but the return upgrade from Los Angeles to Sydney, just the upgrade is $12,000 one way, but
no, wouldn't do it, wouldn't pay for it.
What are you going to spend the money on instead? Trucks, diesel,
oh yeah,
boring shit, tax, half of that goes to the government.
Yeah, I get all that, but I can't see the difference in the price.
Yeah, there's no value difference.
And I just won't.
But how I feel when I get there.
I mean, if I'm going to Sydney or something, and my wife can get me an upgrade through points, I'll always try and do it and take it and do it.
But not Melbourne.
But I'm not paying. I'm not paying $12,000 for a flight.
Yeah, so I pay like $700 to fly to Melbourne.
Our customer gave me an update once to Qatar via Qatar Airways. Yeah. My God.
Yeah.
Talk about first class.
Yeah.
Just unbelievable.
That's what I mean. Why don't you want to live like that? In your 70s?
No, taught us.
And what are the goals for the business for the like coming up? Like, is growth on the agenda, or stabilization and profitability, or like?
Well, opportunity growth.
Yep.
Where the opportunities are right and the profits are right in the growth, we'll take on those.
So you're not actively going, we're going to go do some strategic acquisitions, but if something comes up, you'll look at it.
Yeah.
And if it's right, you'll do it.
And get our qualities better. Make sure that this contamination issue is handled a lot better. I mean, we think that we're doing a good job, but as you and I have discussed, there's still a long way to go. We, as I said to you, we are the industry, have got that as a major issue.
And that's everyone. That's not just Peats. It's not just.
It's everybody. Everybody. You know, again, our board of AORA has it on their agenda. Discussion. Contamination. The world. So we've joined this AORA. So the US, Canada, Italy, Germany, Ireland, America, etc. have joined an association, International Compost Alliance it's called, and we have a hookup every sort of month and a half, 2 months, and we present to conferences and papers and etc. and know when their conferences are coming up and ours are coming up, etc. And the thing that's being discussed is contaminations, plastics, glass.
So there's no AI or technology involved now that can blow plastic off of it, or it's just too expensive?
A lot of it's happening. If you look at what Jeffries have done out there, I mean, they've spent a bloody mountain of money on
business class upgrades.
Yeah, a lot of money out there in terms of applying that technology.
Yep.
I would suggest in the next 2 to 3 years that technology will improve 1,000%.
Yep.
Plus, you're seeing manufacturers that are actually putting barcodes and different codes that will actually pick up some technology through the...
So if there was that, if a plastic was on a conveyor belt, the barcode might get seen by...
Yeah, but even right through the whole thing, they can actually...
make it unseeable to the human eye, but it'll be picked up. Okay, that's cool.
So that's going to be the future. So many more products that are coming out completely compostable. So there's mob in Melbourne now that have got a microwave-proof tray. You know, the black trays that you get your pasta in, that you throw in the bin. Yeah. Well, that now is fully compostable.
And most of the stuff in it, it's all compostable, isn't it? Really?
Yeah.
It's all food.
So put it in your microwave.
Yeah.
Zap it. Eat your pasta. Throw the box in the compostable bin.
But then it becomes an education thing.
That's right. So let's continue.
So what have you got to promote?
So the biggest thing these days is healthy soils. That's what I get really excited about. That's what I get passionate about. That's what the landscapers have got to look more and more into. Councils have got to look more and more into their parklands and their ovals in terms of what can be. There's a bloke in Sydney that's been doing a lot of work on ovals in terms of how many matches of soccer can actually be handled more with using organic matter in the soils and regeneration of those things, and the potential. I keep saying, and I've talked to the LGA about this a lot, but this is years ago, there's the potential to get carbon credits on all those ovals and all those parklands if they build their carbon up, measure it, and you can actually get carbon credits on the whole lot of that. So
it's all education.
Yeah.
And the hard thing is you've got to get in front of these people, and then while you're trying to run your business and everything else. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like everything. It's the balance of it all.
What do you got to sell at the moment? Anything?
Well, a granule product, as we talked about in terms of
Not that
regenerate.
this is a sales podcast.
No. I didn't come here to do that. But again, that product's particularly designed for agriculture.
Yep.
So that'll go down an air seeder, and they can blend that with their urea or DAP or MAP or whatever.
And you can make custom blends.
Yes, we do a lot of that.
Yep.
And
what,
then
from what, a bulker bag up to whatever?
Yeah, like we got blokes.
What would be the smallest batch you could do?
We got blokes in the middle of New South Wales that are buying road trains of the product.
But then if you only wanted to buy a ton?
Yeah, in a bulker bag.
You do it?
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
All right, and if people want to find you, what?
Peats Soil website.
Yep.
peatsoil.com.
We'll link it up in the comments. It's all good.
Yep.
All right, I got no more questions for you. Thank you
Beautiful.
so much for coming in. It's always
Thanks,
a pleasure
mate.
talking.
Good on you. Thank you.
Hopefully now the rest of the world get to kind of learn a little bit more about what you do.
Yeah, good on you. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thanks, mate.